To say what we feel can be the hardest thing in a world that doesn't want people to feel there is something to say about feeling good, about feeling a purpose, about feeling a flow that connects everyone to what is inside. And that is the journey. Whether we are in poverty or we are in riches, whether we're dealing with a disease or someone close to us is dealing with some issue. There are so many things, and I feel that these things become complements to our journey when we can choose to say, I am more than anything that is happening. And so, a lot of people do not really understand how we can build a better future, considering all the imbalance and extreme events that have taken place, are taking place, and that may very well take place. And so, what I feel moved to say is that there is an ego in me, in all of us, and there is an elite inside planet Earth. And when we can talk about this, we can provide some foundation towards the positive perspectives, the positive steps and pathways that are usually spoken in vain if we cannot talk about the hard, the dark, the hurt. And so, what I feel is coming up for me now is that every day there are small and big changes. And we don't always know when they will come. But with the way the world is, I think we can use those points of change to support the sense that there is a community inside of us that we may not be aware of different voices. Maria! Te amo. Voices that want our gifts, our talents, to be fused and exchanged with other people who will not just argue until the cows come home. I feel there is a lot of distrust of technology of the internet of information. And Maria! Almorzar. My dear sister is calling me to lunch. And I am calling you to my lunch that believes the world will change when we can see the world of change inside. Now the world is saying to me, oversimplification to a much more complex phenomenon. But life is simple. And life is also very, very dynamic. Very sophisticated, complex. So the phone is telling me I have a slow connection. But what if I have a fast connection that is based on a will to say that there is a movement known as the Guardians of the Mother Light, the Anima Mundi, the Prima Materia, the light energy behind form. In this movement, I have, and I think many of us have been involved with, taking a stand for when we see someone trying to manipulate someone else. Not in an effort to change anyone, but as a means to give more light and awareness that it doesn't have to be this way. And that certain people do not have the right to put down other people whom they label as bad or inferior, less than, unintelligent, ugly, poor, gay, disabled. I feel that there is a revolution happening every day of large and small proportions to bring a movement known as the Guardians of the Mother Light, from which we can find a way to share ourselves so that others might feel there is a way to reform the economy, to reform government, to reform religion, to reform science, to reform social media, to reform educational systems, universities, high schools, middle schools, that there is a way to reform architecture. There's a way to reform big cities that seem to be so spiteful of nature and symmetrical architecture and other feng shui elements involving water. And let's just say that this world and all those forms that are in it are also reflecting the forms in us, most of us of which are not responsible for many of the imbalances. But there have been singular individuals who have been able to change the face of large elements of a society in different fields or sectors, showing us that we are also capable of perhaps doing something similar on that same level of magnitude. And in the world of information exchange and over stimulation of information, it can seem a little too far-fetched to consider ourselves as consciousness revolutionaries. And so what I wish to say as a guardian of the Mother Light, though I do have illusions, I do have aggressive spirits, I have patterns that have not been seen into a way of blossoming. And we all have, well, a lot of us have, certain resistance towards creating a type of space for others to come together and listen to how we can be a force that is unattached to whatever happens on planet Earth in our own life, while taking a stand for a way in which communities can be sustainable, can have assistance, can have a foundational leverage of support. Communities is a very big word because it encompasses large and small and mediocre. And I feel there is a revival happening with all the technology and all the concentration in cities, that there is a revival for the small, the low, the less wealthy, who work hard. Many of them live in rural places. And I feel technology and conversations will adapt to be able to bring more attention to how we can help these communities that oftentimes have imbalanced worldviews, but so do oftentimes people in cities and concentrated populations. There is really no place on this earth from which there are not people who have extreme imbalances that reinforce the good versus evil dynamic, whether by being passive or by being overly fanatical. through camouflaged intellectual big words or through strong statements of superiority from ancient times. So I don't know how the quality of this video will be in terms of appearance, but behind the appearance, I know that the quality of this goes beyond any comparison to others. So, is there anything else that I want to say? There is a fire that is burning, and it's calling me and others to a more cohesive community. And in this place that I'm in, there is a lot of division, especially in this family household. And I do not have an attachment to how it should be, but I do hold the vision that this family and many families, friends and co-workers, fellow countrymen and women, and cosmopolitans of the world, spiritual citizens of the universe, we can say no to the system that is creating money, that is creating spirit without rights to life, by saying what is in here from the knowledge we have gained from what's up here. And things will change. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. For the better, even though it may look like for the worse. Because it's always darkest before the dawn. That we can say, we deserve a new way that doesn't put any institution or ideology down, but is willing to say those patterns that have made up the dark and criminal behavior that has allotted to much of the conditions that we see in our current time with Ukraine, with Israel and Palestine, and of course with the subjection of billionaires and central banks, all providing a surface of phenomena for what is actually below the surface. And that is exactly what I have touched on in this video, and hope to continue the conversation. So, with that being said, you are all invited to the movement to be guardians of the Mother Light, of our innocence, of our pure heart, to see a way that can shift the equation without trying to change the equation from one that is determined by us only, but rather an equation that we desire to change based on all having a say. And that is something we need a lot more of if we are going to want to speed up this ability that within a few generations we could see the removal of war, of poverty, of disease, and is there a fourth? Death. Really? In a few generations, do you think we can really overcome death? Some of us. But this is not the death necessarily of the physical body. But for some, I'm not going to say much about this, but for the most part, the death, in the sense that death was ever real all along. Welcome to the afterlife. Welcome to heaven on earth. Welcome. To the entire universe.